it's not a given that our children will retain their vulnerability throughout childhood, in particular after the age of 10 or 11 into their early teens. There's so many places, so many reasons for them to protect themselves, to shut down, not to show their vulnerability, and with that also dial down their aliveness, their vitality. So I wanted to tell a short story that happened the other day in my nature program for children. It's a short story about the pressure on our children to numb out, to be cool, to hide their vulnerability, but also a story about the delightful wonder and vulnerability and aliveness that's beneath that. And this shutting down is, it's an inevitable side effect of peer pressure, of relating mostly to children their own age, which is, as they get older at least, more and more common. But even when they're small, we place them in kindergarten, children their own age, and we have fewer and fewer contexts that are intergenerational or of mixed ages where children relate and learn from each other. And so in this peer pressure and this relating in with children the same age as them, in the absence of adults of different ages, it's very easy that they learn ways of handling what is a far more difficult place for them to be truly vulnerable. And so they become cool instead, whatever, and all of that. And I see that when the foxes, which is the name of the nature program I run, when they gather, it's just boys now, and it's a small group. But when they gather, I've known them since they were 6, 7, or earlier even. And so I can tell, there's something as they get older, something shifts. And you'll know that if you have teenagers, if you remember yourself as a teenager, if you're uncle or aunt or grandparent to teenagers, you'll know that as well, that age comes with all the beauty and the complexities of adolescence and of being cool. I don't care, whatever. All right, all the things they say to show that nothing touches them. And so when they arrived, we had a camp out. We had prepared to sleep outdoors, and it had been a couple of months in the making. And now we're all gathering in the late afternoon of February, when it was getting dark, to get ready to sleep over. And as they arrived, they had that kind of cool kick a bucket kind of attitude. And then night fell, and it got dark, and they weren't allowed cell phones, and they weren't allowed flashlights, and so it was pitch black in the forest. And we were about a good 15-minute walk away from an open field, and they had to get through the forest in the dark, orienting by their knowledge of the land, really. And some went fast, some went loud, some went quiet, some went slow, but there were branches, there was moss, there were rocks, there were puddles, giggles, discussions of where to go. And it was real, there wasn't any assistance other than their skills and their willingness to help each other out. Now, my idea was we're going to get to the field, and they were going to have time to sit on their own, spread out in the field, around the field at night. And as soon as we got there, I realized that wasn't going to happen. They started wrestling and playing. There was frost all over the grass on the field, and they were just yelling, laughing, wrestling. And they regressed ages, years, or they just were able to access the full width of their desires as teenagers. I think that's probably a more accurate way of saying it, that they felt safe enough to be vulnerable. They felt safe enough to, have that childish side as well as their more mature side come out. And so they were wrestling and giggling and stuff. And I went away and I did some things. And after a good half hour or so of wrestling in the dark, they started to kind of walk towards me, and their energy was a bit spent. And I said, "Look up." And we all turned up to look at the sky. And it was the most gorgeous pitch black sky strewn with these constellations and stars. And I said something into this openness that had come from them being challenged in the dark, from relying on their own capacities, from doing it together, and then wrestling and playing. I said, after we spent some time looking at the constellations, I just shared my wonder. I said, look at that. Look at that. What is it we're looking at? It's amazing. It's incomprehensible and it's so beautiful. And so they started to share a little bit of what they saw. And, aside from discussing satellites and constellations and meteorites and astronomy and even the Milky Way and the mythology of the Milky Way. Why is it called the Milky Way? So we were all drawn in by the firmament. And into that openness that was there, I said, there'll come a day when the foxes won't exist anymore. It'll be a memory. There'll come a day when I'm not here anymore. There'll come a day when your parents aren't here anymore. And a day might come when you don't even know each other anymore. And maybe you're married. Maybe you have children. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe someone you love has died. Maybe a relationship has ended and you're hurting and you're alone and you don't have anyone to turn to. And you find yourself under this sky, under this same sky, under these same constellations. And when you look up, you're going to remember this moment. You're going to remember these friends. You're going to remember wrestling and playing and laughing together. You're going to remember the wonder and the beauty. And that moment, you're going to take strength from that. And of course, they don't quite understand what I'm saying, but I'm not saying it to them at that moment for them to understand. It's an invocation and it's an inoculation both. Something placed within them that is there for the day when they need it to remember and to help them take strength from and know where to go from there. And I'm sharing this little story also because that we parent for today as much as we parent for the day when we're no longer in this life. To provide our children with the wherewithals and the capacities and the skills and the resilience to draw strength from who we are and how we are with them now, and what we teach them and what we show them and what we share with them, which of course includes our vulnerability and our love for life. So that when we're not here anymore, when we're no longer with them, we can still be their parents. We can still parent them. And it takes vulnerability to let something like that in, not to laugh it off, as I often do when I say things, God knows. But it takes vulnerability for that to sink in. And it takes unstructured play, or certainly unstructured play is one way for them to regain access to that vulnerability. And unstructured play in nature is another way for that vulnerability to come to the surface. So that wonder and compassion and beauty can enter. So may we all find ways to guide our children again and again to that place of vulnerability, and teaching them how to hold that alive, so that that aliveness is accessible to them again and again and again, long after we're no longer here. So thank you for watching this far, and if you liked it, please press like, subscribe if you will, and press the bell button. You'll get notifications of future videos. That's it for now. Bye-bye.